Hello everyone. Please like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our stories.
When winter arrived, it swept over the forest with a silent, white hush. Snow blanketed every inch of ground, softening the landscape and muffling every sound except for the persistent wind that wound its way in through the bare shivering branches. For the Ingalls family, this was the beginning of the quietest season, a time when the world outside seemed to pause, and life inside their little house took on a new rhythm. The days grew shorter and colder, and the sun, when it appeared, cast a pale, gentle light over the frozen world. The forest, once alive with the scurry of animals and the rustle of leaves, now stood still and empty. The only tracks in the snow were those of rabbits and deer, and even those were few and far between. Yet inside the house, warmth and life glowed from the ever-burning fireplace. With the arrival of winter, the family's daily chores changed. There was no more planting or harvesting to do, no fields to tend, or gardens to weed. Still, there was much to be done to keep the family safe and comfortable through the long, cold months. Ma became the heart of the household, her days spent transforming the bounty stored from autumn into nourishing meals. In the cellar, rows of jars and bins held apples, turnips, potatoes, and cabbages, all carefully preserved. There was pork and venison, smoked and salted, ready to be cooked into hearty stews and roasts. Ma's hands were always busy, peeling, chopping, and stirring, her movements practiced and sure. Laura and Mary helped wherever they could. They fetched vegetables from the cellar, helped Ma with the baking, and learned to sew by her side. The girls took pride in their small tasks, whether it was sweeping the floor, making the beds, or mending worn mittens. There was comfort in the routine, in the knowledge that each little job contributed to the family's well-being. Pa's work did not stop with the snow. Each morning, bundled against the cold, he would head out to chop wood, ensuring the fire never lacked for fuel. The tall stacks of logs beside the house were a testament to his strength and determination. Sometimes, when the weather allowed, Pa would take his rifle and venture into the woods, looking for fresh game. The girls would press their noses to the frosty window, watching for his return, their breath making little clouds on the glass. When Pa came back, his cheeks red from the cold, he brought stories of the forest, of animal tracks, and the quiet beauty of snow-laden trees. Evenings were a special time in the Ingalls home. After supper, the family would gather around the fire. The flames cast a golden glow, flickering shadows on the walls and filling the room with warmth. Pa would tune his fiddle, and its sweet notes would drift through the house, mingling with the crackle of burning logs. Sometimes they sang together, their voices rising in harmony, filling the little house with music and laughter. Other nights, Ma would read aloud from the Bible, her voice steady and calm, weaving stories of faith and hope. The wind might howl outside, rattling the shutters and swirling snow against the door, but inside, the Ingalls family felt safe and close. Wrapped in blankets, Laura and Mary would listen to Pa's stories, tales of his own childhood or adventures from faraway places. The girls' imaginations soared, painting pictures in their minds of wild prairies, brave pioneers, and distant lands. There was a special magic in these winter nights. The world outside was cold and silent, but inside, the warmth of the fire and the love of family created a haven. Laura cherished these moments, feeling the simple happiness of being together of sharing stories and songs, of knowing that no matter how fierce the winter, they had each other. On certain mornings, when the cold was at its sharpest, Pa would prepare for a hunting trip. He dressed in heavy clothes, pulled on his boots, and slung his rifle over his shoulder. Laura and Mary watched him go, their hearts filled with a mix of worry and excitement. They knew the woods could be dangerous, but they also knew that Pa was careful and skilled. When he returned, often with a rabbit or a bird, the family would gather around as Ma prepared the fresh meat. The aroma of roasting game would fill the house, promising a special meal to break the monotony of stored food. Winter brought its share of challenges. The days could be long and monotonous, the cold unyielding. Sometimes the snow piled so high that it was difficult to leave the house. Yet the Ingalls family faced each hardship with determination and good spirits. They found joy in small things, the taste of a crisp apple, the sight of icicles glittering in the sunlight, the feel of a new patchwork quilt. They learned to make do, to mend and reuse, to find beauty in simplicity. As the weeks passed, the family grew even closer. The shared work, the quiet evenings, the laughter and songs, all these wove a tapestry of memories that would last long after the snow had melted. Laura came to understand that winter, for all its harshness, was also a time of peace. It was a season for reflection, for drawing together, for appreciating the warmth of home and the strength of family. In the heart of the forest, surrounded by snow and silence, the Ingalls family created their own world, a world filled with love, resilience, and hope. Each day, they faced the winter together, finding comfort in each other's company and joy in the simple pleasures of life. And as Laura sat by the fire, listening to the wind outside and the gentle murmur of her family's voices, she knew that these were the moments she would remember forever. Winter in the woods is a season of quiet beauty and quiet challenge. Snow blankets the ground, muffling the sounds of the forest, while the trees stand tall and bare against a cold, grey sky. Yet every so often, the snow gives way to rain, a long, steady drizzle that soaks the earth and fills the air with a gentle, persistent hush. On such a day, when the rain falls from morning until night, the world outside feels distant and unreachable. But inside the little house, life takes on a different rhythm. Before dawn, while the world was still wrapped in darkness, Pa awoke to the soft patter of rain against the window pane. He rose quietly, careful not to disturb the rest of the family, and peered outside. The branches of the pines glistened with moisture, each needle catching the faintest glimmer of light. The earth was sodden and dark, and the familiar trail into the woods had turned to slick mud. Pa knew at once that the day's plans would have to change. He turned to Ma, who was already stirring. "Looks like we won't be able to go out to work today," he said, his voice low and gentle. "The rain will make the roads slippery, and there's no way to hunt or gather firewood in this weather." Ma nodded, her face calm and composed. She understood the ways of the woods and the weather, and she knew that sometimes the best thing to do was simply to wait. She set about preparing breakfast, moving quietly through the small kitchen, the warmth of the stove chasing away the morning chill. Upstairs, Laura and Mary were still tucked beneath their quilts, warm and cozy. Laura could hear the rain tapping on the roof and the soft sounds of Ma in the kitchen. She stretched and snuggled deeper into the covers, savoring the rare luxury of a slow morning. Rainy days were special, she thought. They were a pause in the steady march of chores and work, a chance for the family to be together in the warmth and safety of their home. When breakfast was ready, the family gathered around the table. The meal was simple but hearty: hot porridge, fresh bread, and sweet preserves that Ma had made during the autumn harvest. The warmth of the food and the gentle glow of the fire made the little house feel like a refuge from the wet world outside. After breakfast, Ma handed Laura and Mary their daily tasks. "Let's make the house tidy," she said with a smile. Sweeping and dusting were chores the girls did every day, but today the work felt lighter, less hurried. There was no need to rush, no pressing task waiting outside. Laura and Mary worked together, humming softly as they swept the floor and straightened the chairs. The scent of wood smoke and baking bread filled the air, mingling with the clean, fresh smell of rain drifting in through the cracks around the window. Once the chores were done, Ma settled by the fire with her sewing. Her fingers moved deftly, stitching patches onto worn shirts and mending socks for the winter ahead. Pa sat nearby, whittling a piece of wood or oiling his hunting rifle. Sometimes he would read aloud from the family's precious few books, his deep voice filling the room with stories of far-off lands and times long past. For Laura, these were the best moments of all. She would sit close to the hearth, watching the flames dance and listening to the gentle murmur of her parents' voices. Sometimes she and Mary would play with their homemade dolls, arranging tea parties on the braided rug or making up stories of their own. Other times, Ma would tell them tales from her childhood, stories of prairie storms and summer picnics, of family gatherings and simple joys. Outside, the rain continued to fall, a steady curtain of grey that blurred the outlines of the forest. Raindrops rolled down the window glass in winding rivulets, catching the light and shimmering like tiny jewels. The pine trees swayed gently in the wind, their branches heavy with water. Every so often, Laura would press her nose to the cold glass and watch the world beyond, marveling at how the rain transformed everything it touched. As the day wore on, the house grew cozier. Pa added more logs to the fire, and the warmth spread through every corner, chasing away the dampness. The girls curled up with their patchwork quilts, reading or drawing or simply listening to the sound of the rain. There was a peacefulness to the day, a sense of being safe and sheltered, together as a family. In the afternoon, Ma baked a special treat, molasses cookies, their spicy scent filling the house and making everyone's mouth water. Laura and Mary helped, rolling the dough into balls and sneaking tastes when Ma wasn't looking. When the cookies were done, they all sat together and enjoyed the simple pleasure of something warm and sweet, a small celebration on a grey and rainy day. As evening fell, the rain showed no sign of stopping. The sky outside was a deep, velvety blue, and the forest was shrouded in mist. Inside, the lamplight glowed softly, casting golden pools of light on the walls and ceiling. The family gathered in the main room, drawing close to the fire. Pa told stories of his own adventures in the woods, of tracking deer through the snow, of the time he saw a bear at the river, of the many ways the forest provided for those who respected it. Ma sang a gentle lullaby, her voice clear and sweet, and Laura felt her eyes grow heavy. The sound of the rain became a comforting backdrop, a lull that seemed to promise that all was well. Wrapped in the warmth of her family, Laura drifted off to sleep, knowing that even on the gloomiest of days, there was happiness to be found in the simple joys of home and togetherness. In the little house, the rain was not just a part of the weather. It was part of the story of their lives. It brought the family closer, reminded them of the comforts they shared, and made the warmth inside shine all the brighter. And so, even as the storm continued outside, inside the Ingalls home, there was peace, there was love, and there was the quiet contentment of a rainy day well spent. As the days grew shorter and the winter deepened, a gentle hush settled over the woods surrounding the Ingalls' little house. Snow blanketed the ground in a soft, unbroken sheet, and the trees sparkled with frost in the pale morning light. Christmas was drawing near, and though their home was small and their resources modest, there was a sense of anticipation in the air, a quiet, hopeful excitement that seemed to grow with each passing day. Inside the house, warmth radiated from the stove, where Ma carefully tended the fire. The scent of baking bread, sometimes mingled with the aroma of simmering pork, or the sweet tang of stewed apples. Ma had been working for days, preparing what she could from their larder, making sure that the holiday would feel special, even if it was simple. She peeled potatoes, stirred pots, and baked little treats, all the while humming softly to herself. Pa, meanwhile, had been busy in his own way. He spent long hours outside, braving the cold to chop wood, mend fences, and hunt for game. He wanted to ensure that the family had enough food to last through the harsh winter months. Though he rarely spoke of it, everyone knew how hard he worked to provide for them. His love was evident in every careful gesture, every smile, every story told by the firelight. Laura and Mary, the two sisters, watched the preparations with wide-eyed wonder. They knew that Christmas would not bring the dazzling array of gifts or decorations that some children enjoyed. There would be no tall, glittering tree in the corner, no piles of brightly wrapped presents. But they also understood, in their quiet way, that Christmas was about more than things. It was about family, about the warmth of togetherness, about the love that filled their home. On Christmas Eve, the wind howled outside, rattling the windows and piling drifts of snow against the door. But inside, the family was cozy and safe. Ma set the table with care, laying out the best dishes they owned. She placed a steaming pot of potatoes in the center, alongside slices of salt pork and a bowl of applesauce. The meal was simple, but it was hearty and delicious, and the family gave thanks for what they had. That night, as the fire crackled and the shadows danced on the walls, Pa told stories of his own childhood Christmases. He spoke of the little gifts he had received: a hand-carved whistle, a red apple, a pair of warm socks. They were not grand or expensive, but they had meant so much to him. He remembered the joy of waking up to find a small treat in his stocking, the laughter of his siblings, the gentle voice of his mother singing carols by candlelight. Laura listened intently, imagining those long-ago Christmases. She pictured her father as a boy, his eyes bright with excitement, his heart full of hope. She realized that the spirit of Christmas was the same now as it had been then, a time for gratitude, for kindness, for sharing what you had with those you loved. When morning came, the world outside was silent and still. Snowflakes drifted lazily from the sky, settling on the windowsill in delicate patterns. Ma rose early, as she always did, to prepare breakfast. The girls stirred in their beds, the cold nipping at their noses, but the promise of Christmas made them eager to rise. Pa slipped out quietly, saying he had something to do. Laura and Mary exchanged curious glances, wondering what surprise he might be planning. They waited by the fire, wrapping themselves in blankets, their cheeks flushed with excitement. When Pa returned, his arms were full. He handed each girl a small, carefully wrapped bundle. Laura's fingers trembled as she untied the string, revealing a sweet-smelling cookie and a pair of soft, hand-knitted mittens. Mary's eyes shone as she found the same, a treat and a pair of warm mittens, lovingly made. The gifts were not large or costly, but they were perfect. Laura bit into her cookie, savoring the taste, while Mary slipped her hands into the mittens, delighting in their warmth. They looked at each other and smiled, knowing that these gifts were special because they came from the heart. After breakfast, the family gathered around the fire. The girls' laughter mingled with the crackling of the logs as they played with their new mittens. Pa picked up his fiddle and began to play a familiar tune, his fingers dancing over the strings. Ma's voice joined in, clear and sweet, and soon the whole family was singing carols together. Their voices filled the little house, rising and falling in harmony. The songs spoke of hope and joy, of peace and goodwill. For a moment, it felt as though the world outside had faded away, leaving only the warmth and love that bound them together. The day passed quietly, each moment filled with simple pleasures. They shared stories, played games, and watched the snow fall outside. There were no fancy festivities, no sparkling lights or crowded parties, but there was laughter and music and the gentle comfort of being together. As evening fell and the sky turned a deep velvety blue, Laura curled up by the fire, her new mittens clutched in her hands. She thought about the meaning of Christmas, about the joy of giving and receiving, about the love that filled their home. She realized that the greatest gift of all was not something you could hold or see. It was the feeling of belonging, the knowledge that you were cherished. Pa smiled at his family, his heart full. He knew that they did not have much in the way of material things, but they had everything that truly mattered. They had each other, and that was enough. As the last notes of a carol faded into the night, the Ingalls family sat together in the glow of the fire. Outside, the snow continued to fall, silent and beautiful. Inside, the little house was filled with peace, with gratitude, and with the enduring warmth of love. And so, Christmas came and went, leaving behind memories that would last a lifetime. The Ingalls family knew that no matter what hardships they faced, as long as they had each other, their hearts would always be full.